Yo, what's happening? This is Coach Christian here coming at you with a Metabolism one-on-one crash course. I'm going to try to keep this short, sweet, and simple. It's actually a pretty complicated subject, but I'm going to try to keep it as very short and sweet as we can and very to the point with what we do with our group training sessions. So here we go. Just going to go through the slides I prepared for you. So what is metabolism, right? It's the process of extracting energy from the food that you eat to produce energy to power the cell's biological processes that are going on. So molecules in food, the amino acids, the fats, the sugars, and all that good stuff, it contains energy and it's extracted through the process of metabolism. So the end process of this metabolism process is ATP and to a smaller water and carbon dioxide. But we're going to focus a little bit more on the ATP, which is energy. So that's what it basically does. So if we're just going to dumb it down real quick, metabolism extracts energy from food and puts that into your cells so that your cell can do its processes through the molecule ATP. So let's go ahead to the next slide. What is ATP? So it's the body's currency for cells, cell function, like I just mentioned before. If we eat more energy compared to the ATP that our body is using, then that excess energy from the food that we're extracting with our metabolism is stored into adipose tissue, which is basically fat, and to a lesser extent, lean mass and glycogen. Glycogen is stored sugars in your muscles and your liver as well. So if we eat less energy compared to the ATP that our body uses, then energy needs to be extracted, particularly from fat cells. And also to a lesser extent, the lean body mass that we have and the glycogen that is stored in our muscles and liver as well. So that leaves us with energy balance. So that's basically, that process shows us that it's basically calories in, calories out. So if you are eating more calories than your body is expending, then you are going to gain fat. If you are using more calories than your body is putting in, then you will lose fat. But we have to be careful with this process because our body is very, very smart. And we're going to get into the self-defense system very shortly. I'm sure it's in the next couple slides. So I'll go over that when we get to it. So let's see. Metabolic consequences of dieting. So what the self-defense system? Dieting activates your body's self-defense system. This system slows down metabolic processes and prepares the body to store more fat. It's a survival mechanism that we had. I'll go over that a little bit later. So there's three main factors that determine how strong this self-defense activation will be. And number one, it's the severity of the energy deficit. If your body needs 2,500 calories and we're going down to 1,200 calories, that's going to shock the body and turn on the system very loudly. How long the deficit is imposed is another variable. And also how frequently you impose these deficits will determine how strong this body's self-defense mechanism will be. So let's get into a few things. Metabolic rate, basal metabolic rate. So during your caloric restriction, the body's basal metabolic rate adapts to the decrease in energy by reducing the energy expenditure. So your body's just cell function, heart rate, blood flow, all these things slow down to match what you keep putting in there, right? If you're not putting enough in there, it's not going to keep burning at a high rate because you would eventually dissipate into nothing. So it's very smart in slowing everything down, matching the energy that you're putting in. So this leads me to the biggest loser. On average, their basal metabolic rate dropped by 20%, and that lasted for some of them up to 6 years. Their metabolic rate dropped 20% for 6 years. And if you know anything about The Biggest Loser, they work these people to death. They're working out constantly, almost every day, and they drop their calories so low. They cut macronutrients. They do all of these things to really shock the body. But in the long run, you see that their metabolic rate was severely damaged, 20% for 6 years. If you know anything about The Biggest Loser, I always ask the clients here in Monrovia, what percentage of those people do you think actually kept that weight off? And shockingly, it is 5% of all of the contestants on that show actually kept the weight off. 95% of them gained all of that weight back and more because they so severely turned on this body's self-defense system and messed up their metabolism. So after not too long after the show, they gained all that weight back and more. So let's get to a couple of different things that affect the metabolism, or that are counted in metabolism. So total daily energy expenditure, TDEE. So these different things kind of add up to how much energy that you're expending throughout the day. So NEAT is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that's just talking, fidgeting, doing all these things that aren't exercise, but they actually burn calories. So what I'm doing right now, talking, moving my hands, doing all these kind of things, that actually is expending calories. The thermic effect of food. So when you eat food, it takes calories to digest that food. Particularly protein is the thermic effect of food with protein. It actually takes a lot more calories to digest that protein, to store it and do whatever you need to do with that. It takes calories, so you're actually burning calories while you're eating calories, particularly with that protein. That's why it's important to keep your protein intake very, very high. Not very well. Pretty high, actually, yeah. Exercise is another thing that's going to add to your total daily expenditure of calories. Now, when you're dieting, especially for a long time, or extreme, or cutting out severe amounts of macronutrients, what happens is all of these things come down. So all of these are reduced. So if you're running on a treadmill and you see, oh, it tells me I burned 300 calories. Well, if you're in a severe diet, first of all, those aren't very accurate. And second of all, even if you were burning that 300 calories before your diet started, if you've been dieting severely for a long time, you're actually not burning that 300 calories. Your body's very smart. It slows down all of these processes to match what you're doing to your body so you don't dissipate into nothing. Because if it didn't do that, and it kept the same, you're burning the same amount, you would eventually dissipate into shrivel into nothing, correct? So it's very smart in, balancing everything out. Your body's smart in doing that. So if you're extreme dieting, all of these things, you're burning less calories during NEAT. You're burning less calories during exercise. You're burning less calories while digesting food. All right. So a couple of hormonal adaptations. There's so many. You go bonkers with the hormonal adaptations, but to keep it very, very simple, we're going to stick to two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. So leptin reduces fat cell size and it suppresses hunger. Ghrelin increases hunger. So what happens when you're dieting extreme and that self-defense mechanism kicks in? Actually, leptin decreases and ghrelin increases. So I'll give you the reasons after this. I think this is the last slide I have for you, and then I'll go into a description, metaphors and stuff, so it really hammers this stuff home. So what happens is leptin is reduced, so fat cell size is no longer being shrunk, and suppression of hunger is no longer happening. Actually, the opposite happens. Ghrelin is increased, so you're getting more hungry, right? During a diet, you get more hungry because there's a hormone that gets released, the ghrelin. So here's a really cool quote by Paul McLean. To ensure success, the regain prevention strategies of a diet will likely need to be just as comprehensive, persistent, and redundant as the biological adaptations they are attempting to counter. So there's a lot of biological things that are going on in our body that we don't really understand if we don't have this knowledge beforehand when we diet. We think it's, oh, you know, I'm just going to reduce calories and my body's just going to lose weight. And that will happen very temporarily. That'll work for about a couple of weeks. But if we want to prevent regain after that diet, then our strategies need to be very comprehensive, right? That's why I'm making this video. It's important to have a coach that understands this kind of stuff so that when you are off of a diet, you're able to understand how to come off and not gain all this weight back, like the Biggest Loser example that I gave you earlier. The Biggest Loser, you'll gain all that weight back. So this is what I want to do. If I'm going to take metabolism in a nutshell, we'll think of metabolism as a thermostat, right? So let's say with your TDEE, your total daily expenditure, your exercise, your movement, your NEAT, your thermic effective food, all of that stuff. Let's say it's 2,500. That's how many calories your body is burning. It'll be 2,500. Now let's say that you go on an extreme diet and you're only putting 1,200 in. That is a 1,300 calorie deficit. So that'll spark all three of those things that I mentioned earlier as far as activating the self-defense system. And it'll activate it very strongly. So what happens is that thermostat now matches, it goes down to match that 1,200 that you've been putting in, right? So now instead of that thermostat being at 2,500 calories, it's now down to that 1,200 because your body's not going to dissipate into nothing, right? It's very smart in reducing all of those things, reducing thermic effective food, reducing the calories you lose in exercise, all of that stuff. So it will match. Now what happens is when you come off of a diet or you increase your calories above 1,200, say you're eating 1,500, now that ghrelin was released, leptin is decreased, so your fat suppression is no longer working, your hunger suppression is no longer working, and your hunger hormone is through the roof. So you're probably going to eat more than that coming off of the diet. So we'll do 2,000 calories because that's still reasonable, right? So you went from 1,200 to 2,000. All of that extra 800 calories is now being stored immediately as fat. Your body's self-defense system is like, all right, you starved me, I'm going to store fat because that's our energy that we're storing, right? In case we hit a famine again. Our body's not used to having food for long periods of time, right? We're not used to being able to eat whenever we want. So our body has these mechanisms to be like, nope, all that storing is fat because fat is our energy storage in case we hit a famine again. We don't want to be starving again. We want to store energy, store fat, right? So that's immediately what your body's going to be doing. And now you're stuck down here at 1,200. Anything that you eat after that, what are you going to do? Are you going to eat 900 calories? You're going to dissipate into eating nothing if you want to lose weight again, right? So that's why it's very, very important that we don't crash diet, right? And the more often you do these crash diets and you lose a little bit of weight and gain a little bit of weight and gain a lot of weight, and you lose a little bit of weight and gain a lot of weight, right? You're just reactivating that system, reactivating that self-defense system until it's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And now you're eating nothing and you're not losing any weight. And you're frustrated and you're like, what's going on? I'm working myself to death in the gym. I'm eating freaking absolutely nothing and I'm gaining fat. And this is the reason why, because we didn't understand metabolism before we went into a diet, right? So that's we really need to understand this as clients, and we really need to be, in our coach's ear and getting all that information from our coach so that we understand how to properly diet, because there is a proper way. Say you're at that 2,500, let's go 2,200 and lose that weight slowly but surely. And then let's go to 2,000 slowly but surely. All right. And now that self-defense system isn't activated, it's just kind of going down a little bit. Now let's go back to 2,200. Those excess calories, if we're eating our protein, working out, it'll be stored as muscle. It'll be stored as muscle. And muscle is 3 times more metabolically active than fat. So each pound of muscle that we store is 3 times more metabolically active, so that guess what? Now, instead of that metabolism staying where it's at, muscle metabolism gets faster because there's more muscle on the body. Now it matches. Now we add a little bit more muscle, more muscle. Now that metabolism's going through the roof, right? Your metabolism's speeding up, and now we go back down, right? So, and then you're gaining muscle on the way back up. So now that when we go into another fat loss, it's melting off. It's melting because your metabolism is through the roof. Now you just go a couple calories, 100 calories down, and now guess what? Melting off, melting off, melting off. So there is a right way to diet and there's a wrong way to diet. Too many people I see come in here with crash diets and I have to restore their metabolism. And that takes a long time. Biggest Loser example, some people took 6 years. So that's why I know this video ran a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I'm very passionate about the subject. And I think it's very, very important that we understand this, both as coaches and as clients, so that we can diet properly and understand how the metabolism works. Thank you for sitting through this. If you sat through the whole thing, you rock. I thank you a lot for sticking through, listening to me. I hope you have a great time. You know, take this information, veg on it. You know, I hope you learned something new today. Create a fitness game plan with your coach. It's important that we're in our coach's ear, you know, getting this kind of information, getting, you know, adjusting as we need, because not everybody's going to be the exact same. So there is no cookie cutter format for this, right? Everybody's going to be an individual and we need to be treated as an individual. So make those game plans with your coaches. Talk about nutrition. Let's get this stuff dialed in and let's get those results. Let's get those results, team. All right. I'll catch you later. Have a good one.